It's a fact well known to all physicists that the equations of relativity doesn't need relativity. However, for some obscure reason, this is not known to the general public. When it's acknowledged, as in a PBS lecture by some Caltech professor decades ago, this particular professor tried to minimize that contribution and instead emphasized how Albert Einstein changed our view of the cosmos. Now, that may well be true, but it would seem that the equations are more important than whether our view of the universe is changed or not. In this video, we try to set matters straight. Our story begins in Ohio in 1887. This was when the Michelson-Morley experiment was conducted in an attempt to detect the aether, that substance that supposedly carried light in the same way that air carries sound. Albert Michelson, the mind behind the experiment, reasoned that if a beam of light was split in different directions by a half-silvered mirror and reflected back to that same mirror, the difference in speed between the two different light beams relative to the Earth would show up as fringes in the interference pattern. This should be visible in a detector. It was an ingenious experiment, guaranteed to make him world famous. However, instead of detecting the aether, the experiment seemed to indicate that Earth, and for that matter Ohio, was perfectly still, not moving at all. Of course, one can just assume that the Earth was the center of the universe and that the Catholic Church was perfectly justified in trying to get Galileo to shut up. However, most self-respecting scientists were not willing to go that far. Thus began the scramble for an explanation. In 1889, the Irish physicist George Fitzgerald, reasoning that motion affected the electric forces that bind all matter together, proposed that moving objects contracted in the direction of motion. If that was the case, then the result of Albert Michelson's experiment can be explained. The Dutch physicist Hendrik Lorentz independently came to the same conclusion and even formulated the Lorentz Transformations. It was in these equations that the concept of time dilation came into play. Of course, their explanation did involve some unpleasant facts. If Lorentz or Fitzgerald were to look in the mirror, they might see this when, in reality, since length is contracted along the lines of motion, this is what they'd actually look like. Or maybe this. Or perhaps this. It all depends on which way Earth is moving and how fast. In 1904, the French mathematician Henri Poincaré showed that the Lorentz transformations can be derived if one assumed that Maxwell's equations were invariant in all frames of reference. That is, they stayed the same however fast or slow you were moving. However, one consequence of this was that the speed of light would be the same in all frames of reference. This whole thing was turning into one ugly affair, what with electric forces doing God knows what, and Maxwell's equations seemingly needing to be modified. Nevertheless, scientists were willing to accept the ugliness since it explained away Albert Michelson's results. Then came the miracle year of 1905. This was when Albert Einstein produced the theory of relativity, a thing of beauty that needed only one assumption: the speed of light is the same in all frames of reference. There was no need to live with the ugliness. However, the old curmudgeons that dominated the establishment rejected the theory. After all, that central premise of relativity was exactly what they were trying to avoid. Better to live with the ugliness than accept the silliness that came with beauty. Not so the younger generation, who prized beauty above all. Battle lines were drawn. The battle came to an end in 1919 with the general theory of relativity. By generalizing the special theory to include objects in acceleration, it was shown that the theory of relativity was even more beautiful than supposed. It was game over. Desperados tried to invoke the twin paradox, but this was successfully thwarted when it was shown that simultaneity was also relative. For many, this solution was even stupider than the original premise, but without proof of the crime, no crime happened. Even the Lorentz transformations were taken away from its original owners and given to the new theory. Some physicists have tried to justify the new situation by arguing that the theory came from the requirement that the laws of physics are the same in all frames of reference. But that's just balderdash, an attempt to put a guilt trip on people who refuse to accept the original premise that the speed of light is the same in all frames of reference. That statement is the be-all and end-all, the alpha and omega of modern physics. Today, with the exception of occasional cranks trying to beat a dead horse, the theory of relativity stands triumphant. But something haunts the relativity of simultaneity, that sleight of hand that buried the twin paradox. As had been shown in a previous video, the relativity of non-simultaneity results in the block universe. The concept of everything that ever happened, is happening, and will happen are all ensnared in a four-dimensional block of space-time. The past and future coexist along with the present. Most physicists just ignore the implication, while others just quietly accept it. Some have tried to reason it away, arguing in a language that sounds suspiciously like English, except what exactly they're saying is incomprehensible to just about everybody. Albert Einstein himself must have realized the implications. Just before his own death, he wrote to his friend's widow that the distinction between past, present, and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion. This was not mere words of comfort to a grieving widow, but rather an articulation of his very real belief. Countless philosophers and physicists since then have shown the same thing. C.W. Reitdijk, a Dutch physicist from the 60s, Hilary Putnam, professor of philosophy at Harvard back in the 60s, Nicholas Maxwell at University College London, Veselin Petkov of Concordia University, Christian Wuthrich, a professor at the University of Geneva, Roger Penrose, Nobel laureate, who illustrated the idea in his book The Emperor's New Mind with the Andromeda paradox, all these people wrote learned papers to the physics community, politely stating the obvious. Christian Wuthrich came closest to calling them out when he argued that critics of the block universe can salvage absolute simultaneity only if they reject either empiricism or relativity. However, there's no need to be polite. Physicists who believe in relativity, and that pretty much means all of them, and who reject the block universe are full of it. The block universe comes straight out of the Lorentz Transformations and can be proven using only high school algebra, which brings us to the question, why is it not part of the regular high school curriculum or an introductory college physics course? The answer may lie in the simplicity of the proof. Unlike things like black holes, wormholes, leaking black holes, inflation, dark matter, and God knows what else, all of which rely on complex mathematics that takes years and years just to understand, with the block universe, any person can make an informed decision, either accept the theory of relativity and with it the block universe, or reject it. And because people can actually make an informed decision, the physics community must be afraid that people make the wrong one. But make no mistake, the theory of relativity requires the universe to be a block universe.